Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video, I'll be showing you guys some tips on how to land your first job or how to get your next job in the software development field. So before I get started, if you're new to this channel, my name is Kadlao. I'm a self-taught software developer, and in this channel, I share some tips and my experience on how I became a self-taught software developer in order to inspire you guys and motivate you and make it easy for you guys to get into the field. So if that's of interest to you, consider liking this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to get notified whenever I release new content. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the phone screen interview. In this type of interview, they basically just want to see if you actually qualify for the job, right? So they're gonna ask you some questions to see if you actually qualify for the role. One of the questions, which of course you're gonna get in all the interviews that you're gonna go through in this either specific company. So if you apply for a specific company, like I said, the first interview is the phone screen interview. Then throughout the process, one of the questions you're gonna get is tell me about yourself, right? So I'm just gonna give you tips on how to approach this. To approach this type of question, all you need to do is mention your education and mention your work experience. If you don't have any work experience, you can tell them about that you're passionate about programming and you are self-taught, right? If you have some education, of course, gonna boost you if you have computer science degree. In my case, I didn't have a computer science degree, but like I said in the video on how I became a software developer with a degree or a bootcamp, I mentioned that what helped me to actually get the job is because I did some freelancing. So I actually mentioned that I am a freelancer and I was working with clients, which shows that I have good communication skills, because to work with clients, you need to have good communication skills. Also, it shows that I'm self-motivated. So that really helped me a lot. So I just mentioned that I'm a freelancer. I mentioned that I'm self-taught, so that they don't really get confused later on when they come to my education, because I don't really have a degree in computer science or IT. So when they got to the part of education, they only asked about my certificates, and I told them that I have a matric certificate, but I don't have any other certificate, because I didn't really do any course online, because that was not the path that I took. Although you can go through that path and get a certificate like Microsoft Azure certificate, or maybe AWS, or if you do some specific course related to web development, you may get a certificate. But that was not the path I took. I learned everything through YouTube, because most people also ask me where I actually got my resources from. So I learned everything from YouTube. That's how my mind works. I learn better when I'm looking for something specific on my own. I don't want someone to give me a curriculum on how everything I should follow that specific curriculum. I want to learn everything on my own. Whenever I need to learn something, I just go to YouTube and search for that specific tool or technology, then I learn it, and that way I learn more better. So that's how I learn. So yeah, that's how you can approach that question. Just mention your education, then you also mention your work experience, or if you have some freelancing experience, which you should get by doing some side projects, and also try to do some websites for the local companies. It's gonna give you some experience, so you can mention your freelancing experience. Then anything else, it's not really that necessary. They're just looking to know your experience and your education on that question. Then another question you might get is they're going to ask you about the technologies that they're using. So they might ask you, because already you might have looked at the job posting, and they probably mentioned the technologies that they're looking for, right? So they're going to ask you some questions related to that. They're not really technical questions. They just want to confirm if you actually have those technologies in your tool belt. So they're going to ask if the job is related to C#. They're going to ask you if you have some experience in C#. You might say yes. If you do, then they might ask you how many experience you have, how many years of experience you have in C#. And if you have 2 years and they're looking for 3 years, they might not really hold you against that. But if they're looking for someone with 6 years experience and you have 2 years experience, then already they might cross you out, and throughout the process they might just go on asking you some questions which they've prepared for you, but they're already not considering you. So they're just basically trying to figure out if you actually qualify for the role, because you went through looking at your CV, you went through they were able to pick you to get to this type of interview, which is great. So now they just want to confirm if you actually qualify for the role. Then the next question they might ask you is your reason for leaving your previous company. So if you don't have any work experience, you could mention that I don't have any work experience. I was just doing freelancing from this year to that year. That's cool. So if you do have some work experience and you are working at a specific company, then they're going to ask you what is the reason for leaving your previous company, which is that they're just basically meaning the company that you're working at the moment, because they are assuming that you are still working there. So now you're just looking for a better job or a better opportunity or some challenge maybe. So yeah, they're gonna ask you that question. So just figure out why you want to get your next job. So if you're working and the company culture is not really great, the people you're working with, you feel like it's not a good atmosphere every time you go to work, you could mention that it's bad culture fit, which is understandable. And because even the HR, they know that not everyone will like working at a specific company because of the culture. They might not like the culture. Also, they might look for a better opportunity to grow in the field. So you could mention that you want to get a better opportunity. Also, you could mention that you're just looking for something some challenging in order to help you grow. Another question they might ask you is your reason for actually applying for this specific job. I don't really get that question in my first job, and also even in my second job, I didn't really get that question. But it's something that you might get, so you just need to prepare for that question. So they might ask you why you want to work at the company. So you could mention you should make sure that you go to their website. So once you apply for that company and you get an interview, what I do is after I get the invitation to the interview, on that specific day I do my research on that company, which is not good, because when you apply for a specific company, you should have a reason for applying for that company. But in my case, I applied for multiple companies because the more you throw your eggs in different baskets, then you have a better chance of actually getting a job, right? So I do the research after I actually get the interview. But anyway, if you look for some advice elsewhere, they may tell you that you should actually research the company before you actually apply for that company in order to understand how the company is like. But actually, this is my research after I actually got the interview. So I spent that whole day learning about the company itself. So you need to learn about what services they provide. Also, make sure you actually look if they have a specific section in their website which they're talking about their culture. Make sure you go there and learn about the culture, so you don't really get confused later on or get discouraged when you actually get in the job and you feel like the company culture is not your fit. So if you learn about the company culture on the website, you can feel if you actually can fit to that culture. So that's another question you might get. They want to know why you actually apply for that company. Then another question you're most probably gonna get is, what is your salary expectation? And most often in the phone screening interview, the reason they're asking this question, they're actually trying to figure out the budget, if you fit in the budget. So, but also, while that's true, they're also trying to cross out some other people so that can make the process much easier. So if 200 people apply for this position, they want to cross out, and they only want 10 people to go through the 3 following rounds. They want to ask this question in order to cross most of you guys. right? Which I learned from a HR person after they actually crossed me out. They told me after the interview that the reason they asked me that question was for that specific purpose, right? They actually wanted to get people off the table so they can work with few people. So I'm gonna tell you guys how to approach this type of question. So like I said, one of the reasons they're asking this question is to figure out if you fit in their budget. The other one is to cross you out. And in order to pass this type of interview question, the first thing you need to do, like I'm mentioning something that the HR person mentioned to me, and it actually helped me a lot. It got me through all the phone screen interviews. If I get rejected, I actually get rejected later on in the interview process, most probably during the technical interview or the last round, where they actually have 2 or 3 people they were looking to hire, and they actually hire the other person. So to approach this question, the first thing you need to do is tell them to make you an offer. So just say, make me an offer based on my work experience and my skills. So now you've already passed through that step. So they're already gonna consider you. They're not gonna cross you out after you say that. So they may actually insist on you tell them the actual range of the salary you're looking for. So now you can actually mention a range, and that's not really in your control because they actually want to figure out if you actually fit in their budget. So you might say 30 to 50,000, but they actually have a salary for people who will be able to accept something like 10,000. Then once you've mentioned that big range, although it's good, it shows that you're available, shows that you trust yourself and you know the value that you provide, right? Although that's true, but they might not really have that much budget. Let's say it's a startup and they don't really have that much money to actually have to give you that much money because they have other people to pay. So that really is not in your control. So they might cost you out based on your range, right? So just consider that as well. So first thing you need to do to actually get considered in that specific question is to mention that they should make you an offer based on your work experience and your skills. Then you already went through. Then now if they insist, most of the interviews that I went through in the phone screen interview, once I've mentioned that they should make me an offer based on my work experience and my skills, they don't really insist on retaining the range. The time they only insisted on retaining of mentioning the range is in the last round of the interview. So just consider saying that. It's gonna help you a lot. Then now I think those are the questions you're gonna get most often, although there might be other questions which differ from this one, but based on the interviews that I went through, these are some of the most commonly asked questions in the phone screen interview. Now at this step, they're gonna ask you to ask them some questions. They're gonna ask if you have questions for them. Then if you do, it shows that you actually have interest in the company. So make sure you come prepared with some specific questions. I'm just gonna mention some of the questions that are asked most often in the phone screen interview because these are the questions that I'm not just asking these questions just to impress them. I'm actually asking these questions to help me figure out what type of company this is if I didn't really get some specific things on their website, or I didn't really, something like that. So I'm just gonna mention some of the questions that I'm always asking the phone screen interview. One of them is I asked the interviewer about the culture of the company, because I might go to their website and see the pictures and they don't really tell me a specific story. So I just want to get like the work. I want to get what the culture is like from a person who's actually working at that company. Then the next question that I'm gonna ask, and I'm always asking this question, is what the hiring process is like, because I want to know what's the next step and how many steps will take me to actually land the job, right? So I'm gonna ask them what the hiring process is like. So they might tell me it's a phone screen interview. Then the next step is a technical interview. Then the third step is a team type of interview. Then the fourth step is an interview with the manager. So they might tell me that. So it's a very important question to ask. Then the last question, which I don't really ask that much, is I ask this question if I know that the interview is actually working at the company. So if it's someone who who's working at a specific agency where the company went to actually get help in getting some candidates for the role and actually getting some employees basically. So the company itself might not have a hiring team or a HR team, so they might go to a third party like an agency, a recruitment agency. Then they're gonna find a specific or the right candidate or the right person for the job, right? So this question, I only ask this question if I know that the interviewer is working at the company. So the question I'm gonna ask them is, why do you enjoy working at this company? So the reason behind that question is I want to know why they enjoy going to work, what specific things they really keeps them motivated, why they actually enjoy working at the company. So the question itself is self-explanatory. So I just want to know why this person keeps on working at this company. So they're gonna tell me maybe they like the work culture, maybe they like the salary, the benefits and everything. So I just want to know in order to know how it would be like working at that company. So that's it for the full screen interview. Then the next step is probably the technical step. It's the technical interview. So at this step, you need to be prepared, most probably because company to company are different. So some companies, they might not really ask you they might not really take you or give you an assignment to actually complete, or give you a technical interview where you actually solve questions on the interview itself, or they give you a link to a specific website where you need to complete a specific coding questions or challenges in a specific time. So company to company, companies are different. So other companies, they may just ask you some questions based on the skills you have or the skills they're looking for. So if the role needs a React developer, so they might ask you questions like, do you know what Redux is? How do you actually create actions? How do you create reducers and everything around Redux? They might also ask you, why do you consider using Redux instead of the inbuilt state which comes with React? So you need to be prepared, or you need to actually learn those things. If you actually know those things, you're actually gonna get the job. So you might not really get your hands dirty in actually writing code. They might just ask you questions. Even on CSS, they might ask you some questions on why do you consider using Flexbox instead of Grid. So you need to know those things. And once you're prepared, you're gonna get the job. You're definitely gonna go to the next step. So that technical interview, the first question they're gonna ask you, like I said from the start of the video, which is a question that you're gonna get in most of these steps, is tell me about yourself, because you're gonna be interviewed by a different person, the person who's actually in the engineering team, right? They're gonna ask you to tell them about yourself so they can get a picture of what type of person you are, and also what are your skills, right? Although they have a CV, they just want to hear from you, right? So after then they're actually gonna ask you those technical questions, and after that they might ask you to. They're actually gonna ask you most probably they're gonna ask if you have any questions for them, which you should. So if maybe you thought of questions in the previous interview, which is the first screen interview, but you didn't really ask those questions, you could ask those questions in this type of interview. Then if that person can be able to answer the question, they're definitely gonna answer the question so you can eliminate any type of confusion. So after they ask you if you have any question for them, and after you've asked those questions, then they're gonna take you, if you did well in the technical interview, considering because they're gonna gauge you against the other candidates. So if you do well, they're gonna take you to the next step, which is an interview with the team. So in the previous interview was just a one-on-one interview, or two people in the interview in the technical team, right? In this other step, or the first step, you're gonna have an interview with other people in the engineering team. So they might just want to know how you approach specific situations. They may also have some technical questions for you that they've prepared on their own, which are different from the ones you were asked in the previous interview, or they might be the same because they just want to know your consistency, and they actually want to know how your mind works, right? It might be a behavioral questions like, let's say they give you a design or a web design from a web developer. How do you approach actually taking that design and actually turning it into an actual website? So you need to actually explain how that process is like. So once you get a web design, one of the first steps you need to figure out is what the color that they're using on the web design. So let's say the colors on the web design is blue. So you need to figure out, you need to go to your supervisor, or if you are working closely with the web design team, you need to figure out what the color that is. It needs to be exactly the color that they use on their design. So you need to figure out the color. Also, you need to figure out some of the things on the specific web design, some buttons that are used. You need to figure out how long the bind needs to be, because you cannot just based on your eyes and just type a random number. If they need a specific width or height of the bind, you need to go to the web designer and actually ask them those questions in order to turn the web design into an actual website or working website, right? So they might ask you that. Also, they might ask you if it's a full stack developer job. One of the questions that they ask me is it necessary to always write unit tests? So if you feel like it's always necessary to write unit tests, and unit tests are just basically some tests which you write to actually test specific functions that you write. So you may have a function that returns a specific value, like you're doing some calculations in that function, so it returns some value. So you need to do some unit tests to make sure that that function works as it should. So they might ask you if it's necessary to always write some unit tests, which is you should not always write unit tests. There are some specific cases where you need to actually write unit tests. Like I said, some functions require some input, then it's gonna return some value based on that input. In that function, there's a specific algorithm which returns some value, right? So there needs to be a unit test for that, because if you don't do a unit test and just do some console log, then later on the app, a user might enter something which the function doesn't understand, and as you may guess, the website may crash. So those type of functions needs a unit test. So they may ask you that type of question. So they're just going to ask you some behavioral questions, some more behavioral questions. So you just need to be prepared. So one of the questions that they may ask you is, if you are under pressure, like how do you actually approach that specific situation? So let's say you have a deadline for the next day, and they're giving you a lot of work. So they might ask you, how are you going to actually approach that situation? And also they might ask you to mention or tell them about a time where you were in the leadership role and you had less time to actually complete the project. So, or there were conflicts in your team. So how do you actually approach that situation? So you should follow a structure which is called SAR. So you should mention the situation itself, then mention the action that you took as a leader in that specific group, and the last one is R, so you should mention the results. So those are the type of questions that you're gonna come across. Then after that, just like all the other interviews, they're gonna ask you if you have some questions for them. So like I said, you should always be prepared to ask some questions. you might also repeat the question that you've asked before, like knowing about the company culture, because it might be different for every other person. Because in the phone screen interview, that person might have prepared for that specific question. They know that candidates ask that question a lot, so they may be prepared to impress you. But the actually company culture is not like that. But if you keep on asking the question in the interview process, you might get a different perspective from a different person. So also you might ask why those people like working at the company, so why they enjoy working at that company. Also, you might get a different perspective, which is better than actually getting that answer from one person. You might not really get how the company is like. So if you ask that question in all the interviews, you're gonna get different perspectives from different people. So yeah, always stay prepared to ask some questions. Also, if you had some question which you want to ask, which you didn't ask in the previous uh, interviews, you might ask those questions. Then the last round of interviews, because most often it's only 4 rounds, but in other companies like Google, maybe it might be 5 rounds, where you meet different teams, and until you actually meet the manager. But in this step, in the first step, if you're working at a startup or in most companies, in the first step you're gonna meet the manager. So in this step, you're probably gonna get the same questions you got in the third step. You're gonna get behavioral questions like, tell me about a situation where you needed to meet a deadline and you were the leader and one of the people in your team was not performing. So how do you actually go about coming up with a solution and actually telling that person that they need to actually need to up their game to actually meet the deadline? So I'm gonna ask you that question. Also, they're gonna ask you about a situation where you are under pressure. How do you actually be able to manage that specific situation? So those are the type of behavioral questions they may ask you. They are different for every other company, but those are the most common questions you might get. So yeah, in the first step, you're gonna get behavioral questions. Then after that, like I said, all of the interviews, they're gonna ask you to tell them about yourself. So you need to make sure you get that right. Then after all the questions, behavioral questions, they're gonna ask you to they're gonna ask you if you have any questions for them. Like I said, always be prepared. Then at this step, they're gonna ask you to name a range or tell them about your salary expectations. But like I said, in the full screen interview, they're only doing that to see if you actually fit in their budget, right? And also they're just asking that question to cross you out. But at this step, if you've reached this step, the first step with the manager and they're asking about the salary, also you can do the same thing, which is what I do always. So the first thing you need to do is to tell them to make you an offer based on your skills and experience, right? Then if they insist, which will probably be the case, if they insist on you telling them the actual range of how much you're looking for, then you can mention a range, right? But like I said, it's not really in your control. If the range is out of their budget, you're not gonna get the job. It's because of that. So that's not really in your control. But be confident and make sure that you actually mention the money that you need at that specific role. Don't just name a small range or a range which you will eventually not motivate you, because you know that you're working for pennies, right? So make sure you mention the money that you need at the company or at the role. Then after you mention the actual range for the salary that you're looking for, most probably that will be it. You get off the meeting or the call, then they'll want to tell you that they get back to you with an offer. If they tell you that, that means you're actually gonna get an offer. But if they get off the call and they don't tell you anything related to an offer, you can still get an offer, but that's not really guaranteed. So also they might actually, which is not really, it's rare, but it happens, they might actually tell you how much money they're gonna give you. So they might, if you mention a range like from 50,000 to like 80,000, They might tell you that, okay, we can give you 70,000, so they might meet you in the middle. So they might tell you that they're going to give you 70,000. So that already tells you that they're actually considering you in giving you an offer, right? So, but mostly they're gonna tell you that they get back to you. So if they do get back to you, which is awesome, they'll send you an email with something like a contract, but it's an offer. So once you sign the offer, because you need to actually get the actual document, because just saying that they're gonna give you 70,000 and that's it, that's not really legal. There's not anything legal binding. So they need to actually give you a document that you need to sign, and then they sign that, then that's it. That means you've accepted their offer. Then after that, they're gonna send you an employment contract. Then after that, things start from there, and you can start working at the company. And on that contract, they're actually gonna mention the start date, and in the employment, in the job offer, they're gonna mention the title of your job for something like full stack developer or software developer, anything. So that when you apply for the next company, so you can be able to write the right title, right? So yeah, that's how the hiring process is like, and how to actually approach every question that you might get. So like I said, if you don't have any work experience, like prior work experience, just go to your local companies in your area and ask if you can create websites for them. That's gonna give you some work experience as well, and also it's gonna help you to actually know what to write on your CV. Because if you only have some projects that you did on your own, like creating a Facebook clone or creating a demo e-commerce website that doesn't really have any functionality, that might not really give you some advantage or some privilege. So, but if you have some freelancing experience, they know that you're working with a client, and most probably you're communicating with that person, which shows that you have good communication skills. So yeah, if you don't have any work experience, just make sure you do some freelancing. And also, it is possible to actually get a job without actually having any freelancing experience. But in South Africa, that's not really the case. It can be the case for other companies, because you can't really know what the other companies are looking for. They might just look for those specific skills. So if you show them that you have some React experience and you actually created a website that has some functionality with some JavaScript code, functions that like a card, a shopping cart, and also if you've used a payment gateway, which shows that you have some experience with API, so they might hire you because you actually have those skills that they're looking for. So yeah, but that's not really the case all the time. But if you have some freelancing experience, it's gonna help you a lot if you don't have any work experience. So just always make sure that you are prepared for the interview, especially the technical interview. So some of the websites that I use to actually prepare for this type of interviews, I use websites like Test Gorilla and also HackerRank to actually test or practice some algorithms and actually be prepared for those type of questions, because most probably they're gonna give you a Test Gorilla challenges. So if I already know how it works, then it's not really gonna be a challenge to me. But those type of websites, they're not really that challenging. Like the UI is straightforward, and they are most common. Like some of the features are most common in those type of websites, right? So yeah, just make sure you practice those algorithms, and also do some research on some other data structures that you might not know of, or you might not have some good understanding of, so you can be prepared for those type of questions. So that's it for this video, guys. Just make sure you like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more YouTube content. So